Okay. Okay, I'm admitting everyone.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Give a second for everybody to get in here. Remember to open your chats. And get ready for the last of our sock sessions.
At least for this round.
Yes, this type of sock. But you guys talked us into doing toe-up socks next. So next week we're hopping right into that. So now we're finishing the toe. And I'll show you a little bit on the decrease. Shayna showed a little bit last week, but I'm going to show that toe decrease at the end of the toe decrease, and then the Kitchener stitch. So it should be a fun one. This is the 30-second tutorial Tuesday, right, Laura? 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Laura, of course, is with me here too. She'll be watching the chat and helping out and asking the questions. So pay attention, right, Laura?
Yep. Don't worry, I'll give you a warning before we start that. That'll be halfway through. We have two $20 gift cards tonight. And I'll probably have to get creative because I don't know that we'll have tons of trivia related to what we're talking about, but and I will just show off. I finished my first sock. I kept the second one ready to put on the toe, but this is the Rye sock by Tin Can Knits. This is in the Xena colorway, and I used the Serenity worsted base. I have size 6.5 feet, and I shortened my cuff, and I think I'm gonna get a pair of socks out of one skein, but that's only because I have small feet. I've got this much left and close to a toe. So otherwise I probably would have broken into a second skein if I wanted to make them longer. But so if you want to make slightly shorter socks, you might be able to get away with it. The other thing you can do is divide your ball in half before you start working. And then next month, we're going to cover toe up socks, which is precisely the way to use exactly all the yarn you have. In that case, you can divide your cake into 2 equally sized balls and then start at the toe and work up through the cuff. And you can use up every last scrap of yarn, which is wonderful when you have hand-dyed yarn. And I also do that when I'm using my hand spun yarn, because I don't necessarily, I mean, I can sort of count the yardage, but I don't know precisely what I'll use and how large my cuff can be.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll let Suzanne start.
All right. Good. I also was trying to play some yarn chicken and I failed, but some lucky person with smaller feet than me will get these socks. So I will show you now my mine, and we will get started. So I did mine 2 at a time. And so I also, instead of dividing the ball ahead of time, I just pulled from the inside and the outside of the ball. And when I got down to, you see, I only have this much yarn left. So I cut it in half. So I do have it equally divided right now and split in half. But all along I was working, pulling from the inside and the outside of the ball. And I just wanted to show you how the socks are set up. So I put a marker to know which my sock was my first sock, basically. And then when you're on your first sock, it's the beginning of the round here. And then I knit around this way. And then instead of just continuing around, I knit around this way. And then I come to my second sock and I knit this way. So it ends up here, if you can see, it's kind of nice with that garter stitch section down the front. So you can kind of see what the front of the sock is. So this is the front of the sock. You can see a nice gusset in here that Shayna showed us how to do, and picking up stitches along. And the heel pocket, I did these all on at 2 at the time. So I'm going to show, basically you'll see how to do magic loop in this section. But for the toe, my toe is a little bit short. So you should make sure to follow the pattern. In the pattern, you start decreasing and you decrease every other round for 4 times or however many for your size. And then you start decreasing every round. So you start out like with, slanting in, and then you start going in a little bit more. until you only have 20 stitches total. I believe that's for some of the sizes and maybe less for some of the other sizes. So anyway, just as a quick refresher, I'm going to do one more decrease round. So the decrease round, it says at the beginning of the round, you knit one, and then you do your SSK, which I'll show you my fancy SSK is going into the stitch and then going into the back of the stitch and then knitting those two together. And on the next half, I will show throwing instead of picking, but then you knit across until the second marker. Or in my case, since I'm using magic loop, I really didn't have to place a marker because the marker naturally falls where I'm going to have to do my shuffle around. So you knit until you have 3 stitches before your marker, knit those two together, and then knit one. And then we'll have to do our little shuffle. Here. So I can kind of push this one back in, push this needle in, and then pull this needle out to start using it. And pull my other sock out of the way. All right, and now I will try and throw this side. Maybe. All right, so knit one. And then SSK, my SSK is to go into the front knitwise, go into the back of the stitch, and then knit those through that window, split a little bit there. All right, and knit across. Okay, this is painful. I won't make you guys watch me struggle through knitting that way.
Yeah, just because we can doesn't mean we're fast at it.
Yes, no. Ugh. All right, and then just knit two together. Okay, and then I would move on to my other sock and do the other sock. But in the interest of time here, I'm going to skip doing the other sock, and I'm going to transfer this sock to another pair of needles so that we can look at doing the Kitchener stitch. And so this step is just transferring. So if you have double points, if you're on double points, then you do transfer your stitches to just 2 needles. And you put 10 stitches on the front needle and 10 on the back, or half of the stitches on the front and half of the stitches on the back. And I might need to make sure that mine is like that, but I'll do that in a second. And if you, let's see, we can take a look at Laura's socks here too in a second.
Sure.
Actually, do you want to do that, Laura? Do you want to show us your,
Sure.
Let's see, you're on double points.
Okay.
Okay.
So mine are on double points, as you can see. And I actually have not done the toe yet. I have not done my toe decrease rounds yet. So I don't have my stitches all on one needle, but what I would do is I would just make sure that the top of the foot and the bottom of the foot are on one needle. So I'm moving the bottom ones right now. So, and then I would move the top ones as well so that I have the 2 needles, and then we're going to be basically you need to have equal numbers of stitches on the top and the bottom needle, or the front and the back needle, however you have it oriented. And then basically your wrong sides are going to be together, and you're going to be doing your Kitchener from the top.
Yep. And I will show that next.
Okay. We'll go back to
But
Suzanne.
when you're using double points, you might have to adjust a little bit as you're doing your decrease rounds, right?
Yeah, so I like working on 4 double points for my socks. Some people like doing 3. I noticed that Shayna had 3 on hers. And I normally don't go down to 2 needles until I'm on the very final round, just because I find it awkward to do my knit 2 togethers and my
Yeah.
SSKs if I'm on only 2 needles. There just isn't as much give. But you do whatever is comfortable for you. And if you are using something like Addy Flexi Flips, then you'll have one for the top and one for the bottom. Or if you're using your 2 circulars, you'll have one at the top and one at the bottom. Or one at the, I refer to top and bottom as the top of the foot and the bottom, the sole of the foot. But of course, when you're holding it facing you, this is facing away from me, but when you're holding it facing you, it will be the front needle and the back needle. So we refer to them sort of interchangeably.
Yes. All right. Do you want to take a second and do one gift card or both of them before we do Kitchener Stitch?
We can do that.
Or should we do?
Do that. Okay, hang on just a second. So open your chat windows, and we're gonna have a little fun today because we didn't have like a ton of things to ask about. So open your chat windows, and the first question is going to be, what color is the sweater on the mannequin behind Suzanne?
Can I block it?
Okay, hang on just a second, because it went by really fast.
So fast.
Went by really fast. Let me go back up and see who our first one was. That was 29 Ways. So 29 Ways, go ahead and message Zen Yarn Garden. They are in the chat. You can just select it from 2, send them your email address, and they will send you your $20 gift certificate. And that is good for anything on the website.
Yay. All right. Now we can should we get back to Kitchener Stitching and do the last one?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, let's do that. All right, I'm gonna share my hands again here. All right, so
myself.
Oh, so good. Are we back? Yeah. So you can see I have the stitches oriented. I have more, right? But that's okay. So half the stitches on what we'll call the front needle, half the stitches on the back needle. Then you do cut your yarn. They say to leave about a 12-inch tail, and weave your with your tapestry needle. So these first 2 steps, they have in the pattern, there's a really nice, written out instructions for the Kitchener stitch, but I have a few tips for you that will help make it easier. So but I am going to kind of use their, wording so that you'll know what I'm talking about. So the first thing we're going to do is a setup. We're going to set up the 2 stitches, and this setup will make more sense after we get into it. But for now, we're just going to go purlwise through the stitch on the front needle and leave it on the needle. And then we're going to come to the back and go knitwise through the stitch on the back needle. So let me spread that out so you can see it a little bit better. So knitwise through the stitch on the back needle, and then just pull your yarn through. Okay, that's all that there is for the setup. And now we're going to move into the 4 steps. And the trick that I like to do is I treat step 1 and 2 together, and then I treat step 3 and 4 like it's one step together. And by that, I'll show you what I mean by that. So in step 1, you go knitwise through the stitch that's on the front, and then you let that stitch slide off of the needle. Now my trick here is that I leave that stitch on my darning needle, and without pulling my yarn through, I go purlwise through the next stitch, and we're going to leave that on the needle. So that was step 1 and 2, and now I pull my yarn. So now we're going to move to the back needle, and we're going to go do step 3 and 4 before we pull it off. So step 3 and 4 is that we go purlwise into that first stitch, and we slip it off the needle, but I'm going to leave it on my darning needle and then go knitwise through that next stitch. And now I can pull my yarn through. And by doing it that way, it just helps you, keep track a little bit better of what step you're on and what you need to do, I think. And it's easier to memorize too that way. So now I don't really need to look at the steps. Another way to think about it is you're kind of always working into this trough, for better words, or this in-between section. So when I'm on the front needle, I'm going into that trough. So I go knitwise into the stitch that's on the front, let it come off, and then I have to make a U and come back out of the trough. And so that's purlwise through that stitch. And then I'm going to pull. And now when I go to the back needle, I'm going to go into the trough and back out of it. I'm going to like make this U-turn in the trough again. So that one, to make the U-turn, I'll have to go purlwise to get this stitch off. Oops, I split my yarn, so I'm going to come back out. So purlwise and leave it on my darning needle, and then do this U-turn to come back out of the trough, and knitwise and leave it on. Did I say it right that time? I don't know. And then you can kind of make sure your stitches get straightened out. We'll show you at the end, you can do some more finagling to make your stitches nice, but you don't need to pull too tight, just a little firm. All right, so we're going into that center, U-turn and back out. We come back here into the center, off, U-turn and back out. You can start to see our stitches closing up and making the toe. All right, so we'll come to the front. We go into the center, U-turn, back out. Come to the back, into the center, U-turn and back out.
Now, this particular process is called the Kitchener stitch.
Yes, sorry.
But sometimes you will also see it referred to as grafting your toes together. Grafting is just, simply put, is joining two pieces of fabric together, and grafting creates what we call an invisible seam. It just looks like the stitches were always meant to be there, and like they just connect with the stitches that are already there, rather than a more visible seam like a 3-needle bind off. Or something like that. Now, I will tell you, when I first started knitting socks and I found the Kitchener stitch complicated, I did sometimes do a 3-needle bind off on your toes. It creates an uncomfortable ridge on the inside of your socks, which is why we use the Kitchener stitch.
Yes, it's nice and smooth.
Yeah.
All right, so how's everybody feeling about this? Like I said, the written out instructions are on this pattern, which is, again, that free pattern. And it's all I'm doing is linking steps 1 and 2 together, and linking steps 3 and 4, and leaving the stitch just on my darning needle while I complete like step 4, and then pull it out. So here again is step 1 and step 2, and then I pull through. So step 1 that's step 3, and this is step 4 because we were on the back needle. And I'm basically just making a U-turn in that trough. So I can visualize it that way. At least it helps me. I don't know anybody else, and we're getting to the end here, and I'll show you that and show you what it looks like. So when you have just one stitch, you keep going, and then when you have just one stitch, you'll just go through that stitch the same like you were doing it. So you'll still like knit that one off, and then I just hold it on my needle until I go through this stitch purlwise off and pull that through. And then you have my toe is a little large because I stopped a little early, but you can see how it just seamlessly flows. So you can't really tell where that join was. It just looks like even stockinette, continuing its way up. And if you didn't, the first time you do it, your attention probably won't look very even. but you can always, you can even come back to this side and you can follow your yarn across and to tighten things up if you need to, or to loosen things up. One common problem actually with the Kitchener stitch is to pull too tightly. And when you pull too tightly, it's like one whole row just disappears. And you'll know it's too tight because you'll feel like a weird ridge, and it won't be a nice and stretchy. So then you would just, follow your yarn, just, I kind of like tug on this to see where it is and then follow it back to loosen things up. But if you need to tighten things up, then it's pretty easy to follow that line of stitches back and tighten things up a little bit and make them look nice and neat. And that's it. Then you weave in your ends and you're done.
I did get asked if we've ever used a German short row toe. I have not. There are some variations in toes.
So yeah, I can. Oh, I didn't bring. Next time, I'm going to bring a different socks too. Let me.
Okay.
Go back to.
There are lots of different toes.
Yeah. So a German short row toe is probably, they just move where you're joining. So you have like, maybe you start up here and then you do short rows to curve around, kind of like we did for the heel. So you can imagine on the heel, we did some German short rows. I don't know if you can really see it, to make that cup. And that's what you could do, to your toe would then kind of look like your heel here. But yeah, it's amazing how many different ways there are to knit socks. And that's kind of one of the fun things about it, I think. I'll bring next time with me, I did a pair of socks that started at the heel. So you basically made like a kind of German short row toe, I guess, maybe you would call it that, at the heel, and worked in circles until you had enough to join across the instep. And then you joined at the instep and went both up to do your cuff and down to do the toe. So that was kind of a funny way to do it too. But
okay, so Barbara says she loves the German short row. They fit my weird toes better than the traditional wedge. If you make lots of socks, you will find toes and heels that fit your particular foot better than others.
yes.
It's exactly like garments. No one size fits all. Barbara, a different Barbara asks, how do you get rid of the end ears kind of at the edges of your seam?
Yeah.
A good tip for that?
Yeah. I just like on the one side, let's see over here, I just use my tail and I pull my tail to the inside, and then I can use it to kind of, and that's the side that it kind of sticks out more on. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe we could switch back to here we go. Yeah, so mine's a little bit more exaggerated because my toe is so short and I didn't do all of the decreases. But you have, yeah, these kind of wings. So what I do is just to pull my tail towards the inside and then weave in your ends, and that can kind of help bring it in. And
it doesn't look like you really have one on the other side.
Yeah, on the other side, it's not so bad. And then also, like, if you saw, you can maybe show your sock blockers too, Laura. So she has these nice, I don't have any nice ones like that, quite that.
Well, there are all kinds of sock blockers. These are just wireframes. I think they were about $20 from Church Mouse Yarn and Tees. So, and if you see, your sock blockers will kind of open up your toe and you won't end up seeing those as much.
Yep. And you might think to yourself, socks, some people would say maybe they're not worth blocking, but it does, the first time you block it, right after you've knit it, that does kind of set your stitches. And then you just wear your socks and you don't necessarily block them all the time, or you just stick them back on their blockers. Right?
I was going to say, I'll be honest, mine are not actually blocked. I just put them on the blocker because they look nice that way and they're easier to show off. So I haven't actually washed them. I will wash them. A lot of times I will wash them before I wear them. Sometimes I'll wear them a first time and then wash them. I just hadn't quite gotten to that because I just finished these last night. We had one other question, which was in the decrease rows. Do the decreases go into the garter stitch pattern? No, when you start your toe, you're going to start knitting in stockinette. So you're going to stop that garter panel in the middle. So your decreases are on the edges, but your toe is going to be stockinette.
I think that'll make them a little bit more comfortable too, like inside shoes.
Yeah.
It's not a huge issue. If you forgot for the first few rounds, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you already started your toe, don't worry about it. I don't think it'll make a problem, but it does keep the fabric a little smoother as you get down towards the toe, and it makes it much easier to graft your toe.
Yay. All right. Any more questions? We do have next week. So next week, we're going to be doing toe up socks. And we have the pattern all picked out. What it's called, the simple summer socks. And it is also a free one. Like we said, it's
well, and I'm gonna put the link in so you can sign up to register if you'd like to. Roxanne also, hang on, let me pull the okay. If you would like to, okay, let me we are going to knit the simple summer socks by Chickadee Knits on Ravelry. So here's where you can find the link. I don't have the pattern downloaded, so I can't put the PDF in. Oh, actually I do. Hang on. I do. I think I did that yesterday. So hang on just a second. I will add the pattern to our chat.
And I will answer a question that they asked if we, or 29 ways, I don't know what your real name is, but that we won, the winner, right? Can you Kitchener stitch a garter stitch toe? It is possible. You have to change, you know, how I was doing, you knit, take it off and then purl it on. You change the way that is a little bit, but it is possible. So that is something you could look up, and then you can Kitchener a garter stitch.
Okay, for the socks next time, you will need a mini skein of yarn. And those are 50 grams and 200 yards. That's because they're super short socks and they're very lacy. Roxanne has put the mini skeins on sale. I just stuck a link in there, and no code necessary, but you will be getting, I believe, 20% off until midnight on next Tuesday night. So if you want to order some yarn, that's great. If you have a leftover half skein, I have a leftover skein from a shawl that I knit in their super fine fingering. And so I'm going to knit mine from that. So actually, we still have one more gift certificate to give away. So don't log off just yet.
Go for it.
So these socks that we just finished, the rye socks, we knit them top down. What are we going to knit next time?
Which technique?
Toe up. Barb Yaki, go ahead and message, you were the first, go ahead and message Zen Yarn Garden to claim your $20 gift certificate. So yes, next time we're going to start at the toe and work our way back up. Actually, I shouldn't say they might be similar because I haven't looked at the pattern yet. So.
I have it here. I have it right.
So I don't know if the heel treatment's going to be the same or not. These are just real short slip socks. They will not be super warm for winter, but they will be great when summer comes. I actually have some pairs that I wear in the summer.
Yeah. They're nice and cute and little.
So
before we end, I just wanted to ask one question, maybe. I'm going to show next week. I'll show, different methods for casting on for the toe. But I'm just curious what your favorite is. So magic loop, 2 at a time, or just magic loop, or 2 circulars, or double points, or what other ones, like maybe flexi flips or some kind of flexible double points. Okay, I see.
Got a bunch of magic loop, 2 at a time on 2 circulars, DPNs.
Okay. So we'll cover all the bases. I'm just curious to know what.
Well, which do you prefer? Because I'll do the opposite.
Oh yeah, I like magic loop.
Okay, then I'll do DPNs.
Okay.
And from there you'll kind of get either the flexi flip or the 2 circulars, or it's pretty similar.
They're pretty similar. Maybe I could switch to 2 circulars this time just for a little different.
Whatever you want.
We'll see.
just tell me and I'll do something different so we can show both.
I'm really a fan of the 2 at a time. I think it's just I don't know what preference, because I don't want to have to remember like, oh, I made this little adjustment on this sock and then I have to do it on that sock. So
I was gonna say 2 at a time feel like they take forever, but the good news is when you're done with both.
yeah.
Whereas I zip right through one, but then I have to do the other.
Yeah, I can see how if you were used to doing one at a time, it would feel pretty slow, but I never do them one at a time, so it doesn't feel different to me.
Okay, like maybe 1 minute to go. Does anybody have
All right,
any
any other
questions?
questions? All right,
I
2 at
don't
a
think
time,
so.
we're going to try it. So we'll help walk through that
Great.
too. So yeah.
So we'll see you next week for toes and for socks in an entirely different manner.
Yay.
Good night.
Thanks for joining us. Good night, guys.